Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're taking a really fascinating look at the inner workings of environmental consultancy organizations. Specifically, we're going to demystify an absolutely crucial requirement under the NABIT accreditation scheme, and that's the Training Needs Assessment, or TNA for short. Now, I know, it's incredibly easy to view these assessments as, well, just another dry, bureaucratic compliance checklist that you kind of just have to power through once a year. But our goal today is to flip that perspective completely. We're going to transform how you see the TNA, revealing it as a powerful, dynamic tool for capacity building and continuous improvement within environmental impact assessment, or EIA organizations. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's how our chronological journey through the TNA lifecycle is going to play out today. First, the QMS training mandate, then self-assessment and USPs. Third, evaluating core competencies. Fourth, the management review process. And finally, the final training plan.
All right, Section 1, the QMS training mandate. This is the overarching why behind the whole process.
You see, Appendix B of the QCI NABIT scheme isn't just a list of arbitrary rules that you have to blindly follow. It actually lays out the requirements for an organization's quality management system. And the QMS is designed to do something profound. It creates a culture of doing things right the very first time. It literally pushes organizations away from relying on just, ad hoc, person-specific knowledge, and instead builds a robust, system-oriented approach. And at the very heart of this system, an unwavering commitment to continual improvement when delivering quality environmental impact assessments.
To really understand this mandate, we have to look closely at the specific clauses. Clause B3 clearly dictates that an organization must have procedures in place for improving the skill levels of their experts through actual training. Like, you can't just hire people and assume they're going to stay sharp on their own, right? And then Clause B5 goes a step further. It mandates that the knowledge levels of both in-house and empanelled experts are continuously updated regarding new regulations and sector developments. So the crucial point here is that organizations absolutely must actively and continuously assess expert performance to pinpoint these specific training needs. It's a fundamental requisite for the whole accreditation.
So, if you take away only one thing from this first section, let it be this. Accreditation isn't just about having experts, it's about continuously improving them. The entire NABIT accreditation framework relies heavily on this real dedication to human resource development. Without it, the whole system kind of just falls apart.
Moving right along to Section 2, Self-Assessment and USPs. Let's look at the human element here.
This brings us directly to the QFM 013 Training Needs Assessment form. What's cool here is that the process is incredibly participatory. It asks direct questions of the experts themselves, like, are you lacking any sectorial domain which you need to update? I actually want you to internalize this for a second. Think about your own blind spots. In the complex world of environmental regulations where rules and technologies shift so rapidly, an expert has to be totally honest about where their knowledge might be lagging. This question sets the stage for some genuine self-reflection.
Here's another actual question straight from the form. You feel confident when TR/EC/ADS presentation before SEAC/EAC. This is fascinating, right? Because it goes way beyond just technical book knowledge. It actually gauges an expert's confidence in front of highly critical regulatory committees, like the State Expert Appraisal Committee or the Central Expert Appraisal Committee. Think about it. An EIA report might be technically perfect, but if the expert can't confidently present and defend its findings, whether that's the terms of reference or the environmental clearance, well then you've got a critical gap that desperately needs to be addressed through targeted training.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the form asks the expert to actively contrast their unique selling points, so their absolute strengths, against their specific weaknesses encountered while preparing EIAs. It's like a structured vulnerability exercise. Maybe an expert is phenomenal at complex air quality modeling. That's the USP. But they kind of struggle with synthesizing socioeconomic data. By clearly outlining both sides, the organization gets this really holistic view of the individual, ensuring they aren't just focusing on fixing flaws, but also truly understanding the unique value that specific expert brings to the team.
Which leads us to Section 3, Evaluating Core Competencies. This is all about identifying the gaps.
So, the management reviews an expert's performance across several vital metrics. They're looking at proficiency and core technical EIA knowledge. They assess how deep their sector-specific expertise really goes. They evaluate that crucial presentation confidence we just talked about. But they also look at regulatory awareness, like how familiar is the expert with recent amendments to CRZ notifications or the Wildlife Protection Act, Forest Acts, things like that. On top of all that, they assess soft skills, communication, the ability to mentor juniors alongside familiarity with modern tools. That means everything from handling complex environmental modeling software to emerging technologies like using artificial intelligence in report preparation and data analysis. These are all framed positively as opportunities for improvement.
As a result of this deep evaluation, the expert and management collaborate to set some concrete, actionable personal goals. They identify the specific domain or training type, let's say air quality modeling, for example. Then they decide if the best solution is external training with a specialized agency or just internal knowledge sharing. Finally, they attach a strict time frame to it. This is a real game changer because it turns abstract desires to get better into a highly structured, accountable timeline.
Next up, Section 4, the management review process. Let's look at the bureaucratic flow.
Let's move to and see how this builds step by step. The approval is a multi-tier review designed specifically to ensure that the requested training aligns with both compliance needs and company strategy. First, the assessment is reviewed by HR and the quality representative, or QR, who look at it from a pure QMS compliance perspective. Then, it goes up to the head of consultancy, who evaluates the technical necessity of the training for upcoming EIA projects. Finally, it reaches the desk of the head of the organization or the proprietor.
Now this is where the buck stops. After that whole multi-tier review, the head of the organization makes the ultimate documented decision. As the form clearly states, it's either recommended or not recommended, along with any necessary remarks. This ensures top-level visibility and, crucially, financial buy-in for the capacity-building process. It proves to the NABIT assessors that the commitment to training isn't just lip service, It's authorized and funded by the absolute highest levels of management.
And finally, Section 5, the final training plan, the payoff. And this brilliantly illustrates the tangible output of the entire TNA process. Once the head of organization signs off, a concrete plan locks in the approved training, categorizes it as internal or external, and establishes the exact quarter or timeframe for completion. This document essentially serves as the roadmap for the expert's professional development for the entire year. It guarantees, in writing, that the expert's personal growth perfectly aligns with the strategic needs of the organization.
So, to summarize the core message of this explainer, when it's executed correctly, the training needs assessment is far more than just a form. It perfectly aligns individual expert growth with the organization's overarching accreditation success. Doing this right satisfies NABIT's strict continual improvement requirement while simultaneously empowering the workforce to stay ahead of some really complex environmental challenges.
I want to leave you with a thought to carry into your own practice. Knowing what you know now about the real power of this process, ask yourself, how will your next training needs assessment transform your organization's environmental impact? Approach your next cycle not as a chore, but as an incredible opportunity for purposeful growth. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.